Welcome back to the Scarcity Trap: How Poverty Rewires the Mind. For the past 3 episodes, we have been on a deep and sometimes difficult dive. We've explored the cognitive burden of the bandwidth tax, the claustrophobic focus of tunneling, and the profound emotional weight of stigma and shame. We've painted a picture of a psychological trap that is incredibly difficult to escape. And if we ended the story there, it would be a story of despair. But that's not the whole story. Because in every community, in every circumstance, no matter how bleak, there are stories of incredible strength. There are people who, against all odds, find a way to break the cycle. They navigate the trap, they dismantle it, and they build a different future for themselves and their families. So today we are making a deliberate shift. We're turning from the darkness to look for the light. We are moving from an analysis of the problem to a search for what works. This episode is not about what poverty does to people. It's about what people do in the face of poverty. We're going to hunt for the psychological keys to survival, success, and freedom. This is the psychology of resilience. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Now, the word resilience gets thrown around a lot. We often think of it as bouncing back from a temporary setback, like a rubber band snapping back into shape. But that's not what we're talking about here. When you're living in chronic poverty, the adversity isn't a single event you bounce back from. It's the air you breathe. It's the water you swim in. Psychological resilience in this context is something far more profound. It's the capacity to navigate and adapt to chronic adversity. It's the ability to maintain your sense of purpose and well-being despite the constant pressure. It's not a magical, innate trait that some people are born with and others aren't. It's not about grit or toughness. That language, honestly, can be dangerous. It puts the onus back on the individual, suggesting that if they just toughed it out, they'd be fine. No. Resilience is a set of psychological assets. It's a toolkit for the mind and heart. And the good news is that these tools can be built, fostered, and supported. Today we're going to look at 3 of the most important tools in that kit: a sense of control, a strong community, and a belief in the future. Let's start talking about the spark of agency, finding your locus. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. Now let's start with the most fundamental building block. To escape a trap, you first have to believe that escape is possible and that you are the one who can make it happen. In psychology, there's a concept developed in the 1950s by Julian Rotter called locus of control. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Where do you believe the control in your life resides? Some people have a strong internal locus of control. They believe that their own actions, choices, and efforts are the primary drivers of what happens to them. If they succeed, they own that success. If they fail, they believe they have the power to try something different next time. Other people have an external locus of control. They believe that their lives are controlled by outside forces, luck, fate, other people, or systemic barriers. They feel like a pawn in a game, not a player. As we discussed last episode, the experience of poverty is a powerful teacher of an external locus of control. When you work hard but still can't pay the bills, when you apply for jobs but never hear back, when a single medical emergency can wipe out your savings, the world is constantly sending you a message. Your efforts don't matter. You are not in control. This can lead to that state of learned helplessness we talked about, a feeling of powerlessness. So how does that change? The shift from an external to an internal locus of control is the spark that ignites what psychologists call agency. Agency is your capacity to act, to make choices, to be the author of your own life. And often, that spark is lit by a single, small experience of success. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Maria. Maria was a single mother who felt completely trapped. Her debt was piling up. Her job was unstable, and she felt like she was drowning. Her locus of control was entirely external. She felt that the system, bad luck, and the economy were in charge. A friend convinced her to join a local community support program. She was skeptical. The program included a financial workshop. They didn't start with complex budgeting or investment strategies. They started with something incredibly small. The instructor challenged each person to find a way to save just $1 that week. Just one. And to put it in a jar. Maria thought it was silly, but she did it. She skipped her usual cup of coffee from the corner store one morning and put the dollar in a jar on her kitchen counter. Next week, the goal was $2. She did that too. Something started to happen in her mind. The amount of money was trivial, but the experience was not. For the first time in a long time, she had set a goal and achieved it. She had made a choice, taken an action, and seen a direct, tangible result. A tiny little voice in her head whispered, "I did that." That $1 victory was a crack in the wall of her external locus of control. It was a data point that contradicted the narrative of helplessness. Over the next few months, the program helped her build on these small wins. She negotiated a small discount on her phone bill. She found a cheaper way to commute. Each success, no matter how minor, was another piece of evidence that her actions mattered. Her locus of control began to shift inward. She started to see herself not just as a victim of her circumstances, but as an actor who could influence them. This is agency being born. It doesn't come from a big, dramatic moment, but from the slow, steady accumulation of small wins that prove to you that you are not powerless. That's not everything, of course. There's also the scaffolding of community, social capital. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. Maria's story started with an individual shift, but think about where it happened. It happened in a community program, surrounded by other people in similar situations. Agency is the spark, but it's incredibly hard to keep that spark alive in a vacuum. It needs oxygen, and that oxygen often comes from the people around us. And this brings us to our second psychological asset, social capital. Social capital is a term sociologists use, but it's a deeply psychological concept. It's the value you get from your social networks. It's the trust, the support, the shared information, the feeling of belonging that comes from being connected to other people. It's the friend who can watch your kids in an emergency. It's the neighbor who will lend you a cup of sugar. It's the former coworker who tells you about a job opening. Poverty is a thief of social capital. It isolates people. The constant stress and bandwidth tax leaves little energy for socializing. The shame we talked about last episode makes people withdraw. Moving frequently for cheaper rent or a new job can sever community ties. But where it exists, social capital is one of the most powerful buffers against the psychological harms of poverty. Think about it as a shared bandwidth reserve. When you're connected to a strong community, you are not carrying the cognitive and emotional load all by yourself. Now let's imagine two people facing the same crisis. A sudden, unexpected car repair that costs $500. Person A is socially isolated. The $500 bill is a personal catastrophe. Their mind goes into the scarcity tunnel we talked about. They spend hours, days, consumed with the problem, trying to figure out if they can take out a high-interest loan or sell something. The stress is immense. Person B has strong social capital. The $500 bill is still a huge problem, but their first reaction isn't panic. It's mobilization. They call a trusted family member who might be able to lend them part of the money. They talk to a neighbor who is a mechanic and gets their advice on the cheapest place to get the repair done. Someone from their church group organizes a meal train for a few nights so they don't have to worry about grocery money. Notice the difference? The financial problem is the same. But for person B, the psychological burden is distributed across their network. Their own mental bandwidth is freed up because they are not alone in the tunnel. This is social capital in action. It's an emotional safety net, a practical resource, and a powerful antidote to the shame and isolation that poverty breeds. It's a scaffolding that allows a person's newfound sense of agency to be built into something strong and lasting. But even with social capital, it's still not enough. We still need the fuel of hope, a mindset for growth. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. So we have agency, the spark, and we have community, the scaffolding, but any construction project needs fuel. It needs energy. In the psychology of resilience, that fuel is hope. Now, hope can sound like a soft, sentimental word, I know. But I'm talking about something very specific. I'm talking about the active belief that the future can be different from the past and that you have a role in creating it. A key part of this comes from the work of Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck and her research on mindset. Dweck found that people tend to have one of two core beliefs about their own abilities. Some people have a fixed mindset. They believe their intelligence, their talents, and their character are fixed traits. You're either good at math or you're not. You're either a responsible person or you're not. When people with a fixed mindset fail, they see it as a verdict on who they are. Other people have a growth mindset. They believe that their abilities can be developed through dedication, effort, and learning. They see challenges as opportunities to grow. When they fail, they see it not as a verdict, but as feedback, information they can use to get better. The relentless experience of poverty can be a brutal teacher of a fixed mindset. When you try your hardest and still get knocked down, it's very easy to conclude, I'm just not good at managing money, or I'll just never be successful. Now let's go back to Maria and her $1 savings. That small win did more than just shift her locus of control. It challenged her fixed mindset. The evidence had always told her, you are someone who is bad with money. That dollar in the jar was a new piece of evidence that said, you are someone who, through effort, can save money. It introduced the possibility of growth. A growth mindset is the engine of hope because it reframes the meaning of failure. Failure is no longer a sign that you should give up. It's part of the process of moving forward. This is incredibly important for anyone trying to escape poverty because the path is never a straight line. There will be setbacks. There will be failures. A person with a fixed mindset might see a setback as proof that they were right all along, that escape is impossible for them. A person with a growth mindset can see that same setback as a learning opportunity on a long journey. Hope, then, isn't just wishful thinking, my friends. It's a psychological orientation. It's the combination of agency, I can do this, and a growth mindset, and I can get better at doing it. It's the fuel that keeps the person going even when the road is long and difficult. We began this episode looking for keys to psychological resilience, and we found three powerful ones. The agency that comes from a sense of control, the support that comes from a strong community, and the hope that is fueled by a belief in growth. These are the assets that allow people to defy the crushing weight of their circumstances. So, resilience isn't just about grit. It's about having a sense of control, a hope for the future, and a community at your back. But this brings us to a crucial and perhaps uncomfortable point. It is a profound injustice to demand that people build these psychological assets in an environment that is perfectly designed to tear them down. We cannot simply look at those who succeed and say, be more like them. We have to look at the environment itself. So, in our final episode in this mini series, we have to ask the most important question. If we know all this, if we know how the scarcity trap works, and we know what the psychological tools for escape are, how can we design a system that helps, not hurts? How do we build a world that fosters agency, strengthens communities, and inspires hope? How do we design for dignity? That is the question we will tackle next time in the final episode of our mini-series, The Scarcity Trap. You don't want to miss that. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. And with that, we come to the end of our episode. Thank you very much for listening. Remember, if you want to support me and my podcast, you can do that by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. You can find the links in the description of the episode. And remember, never stop learning with English Plus Podcast. I'll see you again next time.